Here in the Pacific Northwest, we've got a movement called Greater Idaho. It's basically taking 2/3 of Oregon, the eastern 2/3 of Oregon, and adding it to Idaho. Because once you get away from the coast, things get red. And these red counties do not want anything to do with the big blue counties. In today's case, it's Cook County in Illinois that basically gets all the attention because that's where all the population is. You get outside of Cook County, it's red. We're going to take a look at that. The story here is 33 counties from Illinois that voted to leave the state. They want to get added to Indiana. Let's get into it. Here we go.
Some Indiana lawmakers want to redraw state lines, absorbing parts of Illinois. But what needs to happen?
Let's watch a quick video.
Become a Hoosier. Well, joining me is Indiana House Speaker Todd Huston. Speaker, thanks for your time this morning.
Thanks for having me.
So how did you come up with this idea?
Well, actually, we noticed that 7 Illinois counties just this past November voted to secede from Illinois. And then we did a little digging and found out that actually 33 had in total. And, about 33 counties. And we thought, hey, instead of creating a 51st state, we'd love to have you join us in Indiana.
And which counties are we talking about? Is this
tax dollars
near Chicago or central or southern Illinois?
Predominantly central and southern Illinois, all the way across the state from east to west, but quite a few of the counties border Indiana already.
Okay, so for those who pay attention to history, and I did have to Google this, I didn't know this off the top of my head, from 1800 to 1809, Illinois was part of Indiana until Indiana was divided to create the state of Illinois. So we were kind of cut out of view. So tell us what needs to happen before this comes to fruition.
Well, both states would need to pass bills, which the bill we are authoring, that I'm authoring, would create a commission. The commission would get together and work together to figure out the necessary things to take place to shift the boundaries. Both states would then have to approve that commission's report, and then the federal government would the Congress would have to sign off on it too. We just think this is a great opportunity for people that are interested in Illinois who want to succeed. But we say, look, join us. Low taxes, low regulatory environment, ton of economic development already taking place. Since 2020, over 100,000 folks from Illinois have already moved from Illinois to Indiana. So we think this makes logical sense. We'd love to have the conversation. We're kind of raising our hand and saying, hey, don't start a 51st state. We'd love to have you in Indiana.
But you're forgetting one thing. The state of Illinois has to sign off on it. What is the likelihood that is actually going to happen?
Well, there's already been a bill filed in the Illinois legislature to, begin this process in Illinois. We're hopeful that it'll generate a conversation. Again, we just want to raise our hand to those folks and say, we'd love to have this conversation. We'd love to have you be part of Indiana. We think we got a ton to offer, and we want to, see if we can't keep this process moving.
Okay, so it sounds good for you guys, but how does Illinois benefit if the boundary line is redrawn?
Mm-hmm.
Well, look, I think the fact of the matter is these 33 counties have
glitch in the matrix
right now. And so, this is an opportunity for them to join a place that shares similar values, and I think has a ton to offer for what they're trying to get away from. They want strong, stable, fiscally sound government and a regulatory environment that creates economic development. I think that's what we offer here in Indiana.
But what would Illinois get? That's the question, right? What would Illinois get? We understand what the folks in Indiana would get. They get a bunch of people that are like-minded towards their direction, politically towards their direction, and probably socioeconomically and everything else as well. But what does Illinois get? That's the big question, right?
Okay, last question very quick, because we don't have a lot of time, Speaker, but has this not been tried before?
There's actually a process to do this. It has been done before, and it's typically not in a large way, but there's always a little bit of dispute between boundaries. So this process has been done across our country's history.
All right. Speaker Huston, thanks again for joining us this morning. We appreciate your time.
Republicans are considering the proposal after roughly a third of counties in the Prairie State voted to break away. It originally started, I think it was recognized as like 7 counties were like, yeah, we want out. We don't want anything to do with the libtards in Cook County and surrounding counties, right? We don't want anything to do with them. And here's what that looks like. Cook County is right, I think it's right there. Yeah. Cook County is right there in the middle of that blue. And then look at how red Illinois is outside of this Democratic stranglehold here, right? I mean, you got a handful here, you got one over here, random, kind of random. But I mean, that is red. That is red. So those folks, they just want to, yeah, you know what? We'll just go hang out with Indiana, because Indiana's got a lot of good things going for it, as opposed to Illinois, where you've got Let's Go Brandon Johnson, running Chicago, and look at how well that's turning out. Now he's going to be testifying on why he's defending criminal illegal aliens in his city. What are you doing? And then you've got J.B. Pritzker, who is the new Gavin Newsom, as far as, trying to verbally spar with President Trump. That's not going to work out well. You're a dumbass if you think you're going to go toe to toe with Trump and it's going to work out well for you. It's just not. You're going to get crushed, right? I mean, that's just how that goes. Indiana has looked at adding 33 counties from Illinois that signaled they want to leave the state, which could lead to whole new maps of the U.S. And yeah, we've got Greater Idaho. We've got this. You've got a handful of other, I don't want to say secession, because that's not. They're just looking, they don't want to, secede from whatever. They just want to be added to something else because that more aligns with their values. This is a value thing. What's interesting is nobody is clamoring to become part of any Democratic grouping of counties or states or anything like that. Nobody is doing that. You know what? I want to become part of Illinois. That's just not happening, is it? Why is that? Why are all the movements away from these big blue cities? I mean, we all know the answer, because they suck. Their leadership sucks. Their governance sucks. Just the mindset sucks. Their lack of pro-business sucks. I mean, just all of these things. Taxation, attitudes. People in red Illinois, they don't want to be dealing with the nonsense coming out of Cook County. Indiana House Republicans have listed embracing the counties from neighboring Illinois as one of their top 2025 legislative session priorities. House Speaker Todd Huston said Thursday Republicans are considering the proposal after roughly a third of the counties in the Prairie State voted to break away. A third. You know what, guys? We gotta go. If successful, it will drastically alter the map for Illinoisans. How do you even pronounce that word? For people from Illinois. We just think that this is a great opportunity for people that are interested in Illinois that want to succeed, but we say, join us. Low taxes, low regulatory environment. Yeah, those are two of the huge things, right? A ton of economic development already taking place. We're kind of raising our hand to say, hey, don't start a 51st state. We'd love to have you in Indiana. Plus, Canada's going to become the 51st state, aren't they? Are we going to make Canada a state? I mean, that's what Trump says, right? Yeah, I'm kind of joking. That'll never happen, but it's funny to talk about, right? It's funny to talk about. And when you look at the map of Idaho, if Greater Idaho took place, Idaho becomes a big state. Population-wise, not so much, because literally, so many of these areas, they're far out and they've got limited population, and that's what makes them Republican. That is what makes them conservative, because they have to be willing to run their own show, defend their own. They can't, the police may not come. When the bad man hits their neighborhood, police may not come because they're so far out, right? So self-reliance is a thing. And in the big blue urban cities, there's zero self-reliance. It's how much money can I squeeze out of the federal government from you and I as taxpayers? How much money can I squeeze out? And how much money will the state, will the county, will the city, and will the feds give us? That's the end goal, right? That's the end game. In November, rural counties of Iroquois, Calhoun, Clinton, Green, Jersey, Madison, and Perry voted yes to whether they should explore the possibilities. That's 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can count. That's 7. Yep. So they voted yes to whether they should explore the possibility of separating from Cook County to form a new state and to seek admission to the Union as such. Since then, according to Huston, the counties that share the sentiment has risen to 33 in total. The counties, which are largely in central and southern Illinois, have expressed frustration by the dominance of Chicago in Cook County, Democrat stronghold. Population of Illinois is almost 13 million, and half of them live in Chicago and its metropolitan area. So that is how Washington State goes. You pull up a map showing red versus blue in Washington State. Geographically, the red areas are much, much larger. It's just you don't have any population there. Oregon, same drill. Far more red counties, but they're the blue ones that are in place. They have way more population, like Chicago. Half of them live in Chicago and its metropolitan area. Rural communities outside of Cook County are largely Republican. Rural communities outside of any major metropolitan area are typically Republican. And, you've got a couple of mountain passes here in Western Washington. The second you get over those mountain passes, you'll start to see Trump flags. You'll start to see Trump signs. You don't see that here in Seattle. Because, good Lord, you might as well be Satan for having a Trump sign in your yard. You just don't see that here in Western Washington because people's heads are so far up their backside. You know what I mean? They're just like, Trump, orange man, bad. It's terrible and awful. Our governor claims that we're in Illinois. Lorette Newland, director and coordinator of campaign group Illinois Separation Referendum, told Indiana's 13 News. But those of us who live outside Cook County know we aren't in Illinois and haven't been. We don't see a way to fix it. They don't want to be in Illinois. Make us part of anything else. And since Indiana's there, hey, let's go be Indiana. Let's propose our allegiance to somebody other than, the ridiculousness you've got going on in the big blue urban centers. In addition, so here's what would have to happen. Campaigners are facing an uphill battle. Both state legislatures need to pass bills approving the change. And while Republicans hold a supermajority in Indiana, Democrats have the same in Illinois. So it's going to come down to a vote at some point in time. And this is all just preliminary stuff, right? And, the greater Idaho, it's getting down the road on their proposal. Could that happen? I mean, I am more inclined now, as I'm seeing more and more of these progress, I'm more inclined to say, yeah, I could actually see that happening. Is it a reality anytime soon? Well, never say never, but, it's like, so you're saying there's a chance. I think so. I think there is a chance. And more importantly, I think what it does is it signals to leadership in these states, hey, you might not want to be going down all these crazy pathways because you're going to have a whole bunch of people leave. But I think they've already given up on that. I think they've already said to the more suburban, the more rural communities, F those guys. We got the big cities downtown. I mean, it's great. I mean, you got homelessness, drugs, fentanyl overdoses, poverty, lack of affordable housing. It's great. Come live here in our big blue metropolitan, utopia. Seattle, Portland, LA, Denver. Yeah. Do I need to keep Minneapolis? Do I need to keep going? Hey, let's move there. Says nobody. One of my earlier podcasts today is Realtor.com is moving from California to Austin, Texas. You've got that storyline all day long. You don't have Realtor.com moving from Texas to California because of the opportunity, because of the cheap taxes, because of the pro-development, because that ain't happening in these big blue cities, in these big blue liberal states. Not happening. You're going to have, voted on approval by both state legislatures and Congress. That's always the deal. Congress is going to have to say, yeah. And you know what? There's no Democratic folk in legislatures, they're not going to push this through. I don't think Congress is going to push this through because it basically just makes the Democrats look terrible. Why are all these people leaving? I mean, we already do numerous stories here on News for Reasonable People about why people are leaving California and why they're going to Texas, right? I mean, earlier today, literally, Realtor.com, picking up from California, moving to Austin, Texas. These stories are just happening nonstop because things aren't changing. They are not changing. And here's, and speaking of not changing, Rogan mocks Democrats for not course correcting at all in months after loss to Trump. Rogan argued that modern Democrats can't operate without a state-controlled mainstream media to back them up. I mean, it's when Joe Rogan is working this out. I mean, not taking it away from Joe Rogan's intellect, he has the ability to bring out a really amazing, stream of consciousness over a 3-hour time period. But is he, one of the smartest guys? And he would say, no. Am I one of the smartest guys? Absolutely not. There's way other people smarter. You know what I mean? Way other people. That just kind of shows, right? There's people with much, much more intellect than some random podcaster dude, especially some guy that used to be a real estate guy. But what you're seeing is this is really interesting. Now he said, we've got talking points. We don't trust you anymore, meaning Republicans don't trust the big mainstream media. We don't trust the New York Times. No, because it's so biased. We don't trust the Washington Post, even though it's owned by Jeff Bezos, who is now buddies with Trump. And he didn't allow the Washington Post to endorse a candidate in the presidential election. That was interesting. Neither did the Los Angeles Times. They've got an owner that's been red-pilled as well. It's happening everywhere. We don't trust CNN or MSNBC. They're all full with propaganda. Rogan is saying this about mainstream media. He derided the left-wing narrative that their defeat was driven by mysterious donors stirring uprisings online, but rather because you guys suck, and you're not real people. That's the Joe Rogan that we all know and love, right? And he caps it off with, nobody wants to hang out with Brian Stelter. So true. So true. I mean, just the basics. You guys suck and you're not real people. Nobody wants to hang out with Brian Stelter. And he's a short little guy from CNN who just said a bunch of random stuff that made no sense. And orange man bad. And it didn't work out well for him. So yeah, I mean, we've got this whole thing where nobody trusts mainstream media, and yet Democrats are kind of left in their own echo chamber, and they actually think that since they're watching it on ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, or MSNBC, it must be truthful. Well, how did the election turn out, given those circumstances? How much truth did you get from mainstream media? Oh, they're neck and neck in the polls. They're neck and neck in the polls. They're neck and neck. I mean, they're this close together in the polls. And then what happened? Yeah, the election 2024 happened, right? So never say never. Will Indiana absorb 33 counties in Illinois? I don't know, but it's certainly entertaining to talk about and to think about. What if that happened? What if Greater Idaho happened? What all the changes that would take place? I think we're a long way out. But again, we're having the conversation, and I think that's what's important. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.